Well, hello. We'll give a couple of minutes for more people to join, and then we'll start the webinar. We'll give another half minute, and then we'll be ready to start. Right. Well, I think we'll start. So thank you all for joining this afternoon. And our webinar today is with new technology focus, and we'll be introducing UltraB Connect. I'm pleased to say that this time I'm joined with Ian Moran, our robotic disinfection category manager, and Corrado Gilbert, our regional manager for Midlands. So what's coming up? So today we'll talk a bit more about the UVC light technology. UVC light technology that's been used in hospitals. We'll introduce UltraB Connect. We'll explain how we work with hospitals, and we'll discuss some of the efficacy results. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a Q&A session. So I encourage you to use the Q&A tab to post any of the questions throughout the webinar, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the session. So Inivos is a specialist business focused on development of technologies and services to reduce the risk of patients acquiring infections in clinical environments. And our aim is to enable care environments to deliver better care faster. So when we work with our customers, we tend to follow this three-step approach. So first, we'd like to understand the infection needs of the hospital. And this is a crucial step, but then it allows us to design solutions. And then we deliver the results and project manage the process. So the UVC technology that we use lamps that exclusively generate UVC light at 254 nanometer wavelength, which is the most germicidal. And this wavelength is only recently been applied directly to surfaces in hospitals and proven to be the most effective. So UVC light can play an important role in the efficacy of cleaning practices and controlling the spread of infection. UVC light has been proven to kill vegetative bacteria by destroying the nucleic acid in the DNA. It's designed to be fixed and mobile, and Inivos UVC decontamination systems are effective, residue-free, and safe to use. Inivos UVC technologies have been chosen systems in 30 non-acute NHS trust. And with that note, I'll hand over to Ian to talk about the Inivos fixed UVC system.
Thank you, Tarsus. So very excited to be presenting this product. As Tarsus has made clear, there's great benefit in UVC light as a decontamination vehicle. So the system we've designed is designed for high intensity UVC action for rapid decontamination. So areas which need to be turned around quickly. This is perfect. We've designed a perfect system for that. One thing that's really clever about the system is that we've optimized the decontamination cycles so that they're specific to the environment into which the system is being installed. So right from the beginning of the process, we will look at the risks and where there's risk of contamination and optimize the system to suit that particular environment and the requirements of that space. So that allows us to really hone in on where the risk is highest and make sure that that's what we're hitting first and hardest. It also allows us to offer quicker cycles in between a patient turnaround, for instance, in between use of the room. So if there's a specific area of high risk that needs to be done in between every patient, then we can offer that as a specific cycle. So it's a very clever piece of design that's gone into that there. On the we've also got automatic and validated decontamination at the touch of a button. So the processes that are specific to that room are built into the process monitor. So on use of the system, you can select the particular cycle that has been set up for that room or for a specific process within that room, and you can start that instantaneously, knowing that you've got a validated, calibrated result for that process. Safety is obviously very important, so we've included these motion sensors to allow for whole room security and auto deactivation of the device in the unlikely event that anyone gets beyond the original and robust safety measures. Then this auto deactivation will kick in and stop the system instantly. Another thing which we thought was really key to include is the ability to group units on a single controller to serve large spaces. So this allows larger areas such as theatres, emergency departments to have multiple systems to cover the entire space, but all can be operated as a group. So it's a really valuable part of the design there that we were very keen to include. The single user process monitor is controlled from outside the area, so it's fixed to the wall. It's designed for high traffic areas in hospitals, and it allows the person the user to leave the room, make sure it's safe, and then operate the system from a central point. There's also a patent pending on the device which relates to the calibrated process, so we're really looking forward to introducing this product to more hospitals shortly. So if we could move on to Altus. So again, on this one, what we're really keen to implement is a process that allows us to understand your needs and deliver results. So the system will be specifically designed to each and every room, and with the application that's unique to that room and the specific decontamination cycles. We also deliver tailored results. So in each application, we can tailor the decontamination cycle, and we can provide training to key staff to know how to use that. What we recognise as well is that it was important that the system was suitable for new build hospitals, and as well as the existing hospital healthcare stock. So the system can be very easily installed retrofitted into existing buildings, so it's not limited in its use from that point of view. And a really key point is that we are utilising tried and tested technology. So the system utilises a very similar set of technologies to our current Ultra V mobile device. So there's great peace of mind in the fact that this technology is being used for many years by acute hospitals around the globe. Could we move on? At this point, yeah, I think I'd be glad to hand over to Corrado to help us on the specific applications that are suited to this product.
Yeah, thank you, Ian, and great to be included on this to share the work we've been doing. So just from my perspective, working with a number of colleagues who are interacting and working with NHS hospitals throughout the country on a daily basis at the moment, who are engaging about this particular method of decontamination. I think what we've been really impressed by has been the ability to install this into multiple areas rather than just one typical environment, because of its flexibility. And taking us back maybe to when we first started developing this particular product, was from feedback of working with around 120 hospitals, and we had particular feedback was actually from an ED consultant at Adam Brooks Hospital around the requirement for a faster method of decontamination within A&E. And the particular comment was that it's great that we can get UV decontamination down to the department, but often that time delay between requesting for the decontamination to take place and the domestic actually arriving on the department to run the decontamination process was often longer than actually the decontamination process itself. And when we looked at that we were seeing that across organisations throughout the country. And that may not be an ED, that could be a critical care environment, it could be a theatre environment, it could be an environment where we've got patients who are highly susceptible to infection. So when we look at the applications, typically we're finding where this is best suited initially is departments within the hospital where we've got a high throughput of patients, such as A&E, or we've got a department in a hospital where we've got patients who are highly susceptible to infection. So maybe a cystic fibrosis unit, or a hematology oncology unit, or maybe a critical care environment. If we could have the next slide, Tautis. I think the following slides will give us a bit of an understanding as to some of the applications that we've been working with a number of trusts. What you can see here is a typical isolation room environment, whereby we work through the process of understanding what the core clinical activity is that's happening within that environment, and then we look at what the requirement is for decontamination, how regularly do we want to decontaminate this room, what the acceptable downtime is for the environment, and then working with our technical design team who come back to us with a design of where the Ultra V Connect emitters will go. And what you can see here is a typical side room layout without an ensuite is requiring a single system within the room. And then on the outside of the room, you can see there, I don't know whether you can point to that, Tautis, thank you. That's the process monitor, which is affixed to the wall outside the room. So there's no requirement to be inside the space whilst the room's been decontaminated. If we looked at a more complex environment, such as a theatre space, this is from a particular project we're working on at the moment with a new build hospital. And this is and as you can see, we've got the prep room there, which leads into the main theatre. And we've got also the anaesthetic room, which leads into the main theatre. So what we've done here is we've looked at what equipment's in the environment, what clinical activities happening in the environment, and how that space is going to be used, identified the areas of high risk, the high contamination areas, and we've also looked at when and how often this will need to be decontaminated. And again, we've taken time to understand the downtime that's going to be acceptable for that particular clinical environment. And what you can see here is from the testing we've been doing and the work we've done, we obviously we're not moving away from the challenges of UVC, and very quickly those are that it's a line of sight technology, so it creates its own shadows to a degree, and also that it works on the power of the inverse square. So as we move away from the source of the light, the ability to decontaminate reduces rapidly. So we've done a lot of testing around where that fine line is, if you like, between having enough exposure for the speed of the decontamination that we want, and also where do we need to bring in a second Ultra V Connect emitter. So what you can see here is how it's been designed into the environment based on the output of UVC light for the efficacy that we're looking for, and also the speed that we're happy with. Thank you, Tautis. So I'm now going to hand back to Ian to take us through some of the safety features of the system.
Thanks, Corrado. It's very good insights there. So one of the key things we realised early on, or has always been really a pillar of Inivos's approach, is to ensure that our systems are at the cutting edge of safety. So we have the process monitor dedicated to the specific room which it's serving, which is mounted outside the room. It communicates via dedicated local wireless network connection. So there's no requirement to bolt the system into the hospital's network, which is a benefit from a security point of view. The system can only be operated by approved operators, which is really important, because it's key that operators understand the risks, the benefits, the way the system should be used. So the way we manage that is to issue all trained operators with an operator card to access the programs, and that can ensure that we have a really good control mechanism in place to ensure that the system is being used safely. All that being said, we are keen to make it simple to use, so the software has been designed with very clear step-by-step instructions, allowing the user to select the pre-programmed process that is required for that particular point in time. The essential safety checks are confirmed by the operator, and then there's a warning screen displayed until the process is complete. So it's very clear the process monitor is mounted outside the room, and it's very clear that the decontamination is in process, and there's a clear set of safety instructions that are checked by the operator, and if anything bypasses that, then there's the final barrier to any danger in the form of these motion sensors, which we've got highlighted on the screen here. So a key feature of this product is the very well thought out and clear safety systems that it contains. Thank you, Tatus. I think we could move on. And I'll hand over to Corrado for this slide about the client journey.
Yeah, thank you. So to give you some insight into how we've been working with hospitals to develop the design and look at the installation of this particular product, this particular technology, is that we first of all, as we mentioned earlier, was we take the time to understand what the requirements are. So where do we see a requirement for improved operational performance, and where we want some rapid turnaround of our rooms, but we need to create safer environments for our patients. And where have we maybe got areas of the hospital where we know are high risk, or we've got patients who are highly susceptible to infection. And then we look at what the impact of that is, and we identify the areas where this would be a benefit and are required. Once we understand that, we then take the time to understand what the rooms are used for, what the core clinical activity is, and as I mentioned before, how often we want to be decontaminating those, how long we've got to decontaminate those, and a number of other factors that go along with that. Once we've done the analysis and understanding piece, we then move into the design phase, where we work with the plans of the clinical area that we're decontaminating, and with our technical design team who work through that process of pulling together the locations of where the Ultra-V Connect emitters will be located to optimize the efficiency of the decontamination process. Once that design is then complete, we've then been working together with trusts to look at the installation and delivery of that, and working in with relevant departments from estates and facilities through to the operational team and through to the clinical team of that particular department to install these with minimal disruption to the particular department which this is being installed into. And I think a key thing for us has been that we developed this and designed this technology so that it not only can be retrofitted or not only built into a new build environment, but can be retrofitted into an existing healthcare environment. So we're working with a number of existing organisations with existing needs within an existing estate or retained estate, but also with a number of new builds that are happening across the country, and it's being designed into those, and also into the new builds of there's a number of emergency departments, as most would know, that are being designed and built in the very near future. So we're very excited to be part of that, and we're certainly looking forward to working with other trusts in the near future.
Good, thanks, Corrado. And just before we go into the other slide, I just wanted to say that it is really great to see that the Ultra-V Connect was able to embody and kind of get all the best features out of the sister product, which is the Ultra-V. So it means that the Ultra-V Connect benefits from all the efficacy results and all the efficacy test data that we have for the Ultra-V, because we employ the same spectral technology to calibrate your processes. It took all the best safety features to make sure that the process is safe. And then it clearly has the best process monitor with all the right infographics to make sure that the process is easy. So it's really nice to see that, the years of feedback and working with the trust was kind of taken from a mobile device into this fixed system that each side room, theatre and operating room could benefit from. I just want to do this intro into this next slide because we're going to talk about the efficacy, which is really linked to the efficacy that we got from our UVC light technology and our spectrum technology. I'm hoping that Corrado will talk about that now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tautis. So this was a piece of work we did with the Barnsley Hospital and with a number of the team there, and this was really to get an understanding of what the ability was really of the Ultra V. Then this has been published and taken to a number of conferences since. So what you can see here is they did some 3-stage sampling, which was carried out before cleaning, after the patient was discharged, then again after the manual cleaning process, and then again after the Ultra V decontamination process. So what, and we were using contact plates to measure and sample the environment across 5 locations in each isolation room. And then those were incubated at 37 degrees for 48 hours before being read and recorded. And then we recorded the TVC, the total viable count. So what you can see here before cleaning is an average across 5 touch points across 20 isolation rooms post-discharge of an infected patient. And you can see there that we saw relatively high levels of contamination, which I think you could say would be expected post-discharge. Then the manual cleaning process took place, and after cleaning, the results, you can see there, the total viable count dropped to 39.9. So a fairly significant reduction of about a half. However, I guess it's obvious to say that we knew that we could be doing better, and we could reduce the level of contamination to way below that before we admitted the next patient, and we're happy to admit that next patient to a safe environment. And following the Ultra V decontamination process, that level reduced down from the 39.9 to 1.06 colonies across those 5 touch points across the 20 rooms as an average. And that was in a process time of an average of 21.4 minutes. So after a decontamination process with UVC, and what we've always emphasized and we continue to emphasize is the importance of the validation, because of the 2 key drawbacks. So due to it being a line of sight technology and it works on the power of the inverse square, we must know exactly what's going on in the room at any point during the process, so that once the process is complete, we've got the assurance and the hospital's got the assurance of a validated, successful decontamination process at every point around the room. Now, how we've translated that to the Ultra V Connect is we actually pre-calibrate the system post or as the last stage of the installation process. So once the Ultra V Connects are installed into a hospital environment, one of the last phases of the commissioning is what we call pre-calibration. And we pre-calibrate the emitters to run set decontamination processes based on the environment they're decontaminating. So no one decontamination process will be the same as another, because each individual process is pre-calibrated to that one environment that it's decontaminating to ensure we're getting the right level of exposure and achieving the right level of efficacy every time. Was there anything you wanted to add to that, Tautis?
Yes, and I just wanted to say that given the fixed nature of Ultra V Connect, we basically get the benefits of using the spectrum technology once to calibrate your processes to the specific environment, and then we don't have to use them for your normal processes because your system is fixed. So given that we don't move the light source, which is fixed to the ceiling or in the designated area, we're able to use these spectrums to calibrate your process once, and then you don't have to deploy them again. Which is what we do with the Ultra V, because it's a mobile system and your position of that system changes every time, you'd have to deploy these spectrums. But the results are that we are able to achieve the same high level of efficacy and validate our processes using the same spectrum technology. which is great to see that we're able to leverage that. Is there anything else you want to add, Ian?
No, it's a very good summary. The only thing is, yeah, just to also back up what you said about you and Corrado both said about the pre-calibrated processes, because it really gives great flexibility as to the specific processes that are used. So as an example, if there was an area where a room where a patient was brought in and it was a specific area the patient was brought to, and then the patient was then taken from the room, you might not have the time in between the next patient to run a full process on the entire room, but you can actually select a process which is specifically calibrated by the Spectrum technology to treat the area where that patient has been. So it gives you a great level of assurance in a short space of time that you've actually treated the highest risk areas. And then obviously as we follow up after installation, there can be those processes, those calibrated processes can be checked on a routine basis to ensure that the efficacy levels are being maintained. But yeah, I think that was a good summary.
It's a good point, Ian, that, you know, why not to be connect with the process monitor or with multiple units? Single site, we might have 3 or 4 decontamination programs, depending on what you're trying to decontaminate, which gives the flexibility for the user to choose exactly in what process to run in given circumstances. So I'd like to move to the thank you slide and then see if there's any questions. And at the moment, I can't see any. I do encourage any of the viewers to post them. And now if we have a couple of minutes to go through those. But I suppose what I found really interesting is about the whole process of trying to understand the actual need of Connect and then decide on how many units and where we position the process monitor. And perhaps Ian is something that you can just give a bit more detail or a better summary to explain how that process would work. I know we've given an example of the current projects we're working on. When in brief, what would be the steps that we'd be taking to make sure we cater for those specific needs?
Yeah, so it's a good point. So what we would do is work with the trusts as they come to us with a potential application. We would work with them to understand from their point of view, but also to help them perhaps understand as to where the highest risk surfaces are within that space. And then we would work with them to understand the next phase as to how is that room used, what is the typical patient flow, how quickly is the turnaround required, you know, what are the priorities for decontamination in that space, where's the risk. And then we run a design tool which positions the systems within the room and looks at where the light is reaching to make sure that we are treating those highest risk areas. As Corrado has said, there are limitations with Uvc technology. It's a great technology for many reasons, but it does have limitations. So it's really key for us to work with hospitals to understand where their risks are, and to make sure that the way we're applying the system is addressing those risks, and also to ensure that if there's an area which we can't manage with Ultra V Connected, we are making that clear as well, so that the end result for the trust is a reassured, an assured calibrated process that does meet their needs and their risks. It might be in some circumstances that due to the specific nature or type of room that is in use, that an alternative technology is better, and we'd be really keen to be open and clear about that. But what we've seen for the projects we have worked on is that there are a very good range of applications where it can significantly de-risk contamination within a space. So I don't know if that answers your question, Tautas.
I think it does. And then we've just got some questions which perhaps you can follow up to. One of the viewers saying that he was late to join, however, asking whether the system is fully wireless and to do with installation and then obviously the operation of the system.
Yeah, so it is wireless in terms of its control. It obviously has a fixed power supply, but the actual communication is fully wireless. That's correct, yeah.
Exactly, and then just to add to that, so the operators will be using the a card that's been programmed to their name, so they would only would get that after the training, so they're in full control of the process, and the system can only be operated by that card. There's another question. So, is there a limit of how many ultraviolet light emitters can be associated with one process monitor? The person asking thinks about large open bay areas, wards, and theatres.
It's a good question. Certainly, in typical applications, there's no limit that we've tested to at this point. It would really be governed by the physical spread and size of the space as to how the signal works. But I can't imagine any typical healthcare environment where a single process monitor wouldn't be able to run the required amount of light devices.
Just to follow on from that, Ian, to give a live application, we've been working with a hospital, working at the moment with a hospital who's identified their radiology department as a particular area of high risk and of concern for them. So we've been working with them on their on the ward which is short stay, where the patients come in, mostly ambulatory patients who are coming in for some form of radiology, and that ward is not in use overnight. So what we've looked at doing is actually designing it in so that we've got an Ultra-V Connect emitter positioned in each room throughout the ward, and one process monitor at the end of the ward. So at the end of each day, the whole radiology department is cleaned, and on this particular section where they have patients who come through and spend time either in a chair or on a bed, and we're actually locating the Ultra-V Connect emitters throughout that area, so that once it's cleaned, it can be closed off. The double doors at the end of the ward can be closed, and it can be operated from one process monitor outside the end of that area. So giving them the ability to decontaminate that whole department virtually within around a 30-minute window. So that's not something we've come across as a challenge as yet.
It's a good point, and I think it really highlights just how flexible the systems are, and it also highlights how we understand the particular application and the process and the use of those rooms with our knowledge from years of experience in the healthcare environment to optimize how the systems are installed and designed.
And that leads nicely to the other question that we got from one of the viewers, saying that would there be any benefit in placing the lights low to go under the operating tables? And I guess I can answer to do with, well, depending on your need. If the need is to decontaminate the under the operating tables, there's no reason why we couldn't. And the fact that we have the UVC the spectrum technology, we can obviously calibrate those processes to make sure there will be enough light hitting those surfaces. Again, as Ian just mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility about using those fixed UVC systems from what we've designed with the Ultra-V Connect. There was one question to talk about there, whether there's what is the impact on UVC light on surfaces over time. So it's important to know that UVC light is a chemical-free process, and we do use spectrum technology to make sure we don't overkill every single surface. So you use just the right amount of UVC light to achieve the right level of efficacy. And I think this is a key point, because some of the other systems do work on the assumption of overkilling every single surface to try and get the right level of efficacy. And we use our technology to make sure we just use the right amount of time, which obviously saves time and has better material compatibility to do with surfaces. There was another question saying, what maintenance is involved with the units? Ian, is this something you can answer?
Yeah, so a great thing about them is that they have few moving parts, so they would be very low maintenance. The key things that we would look to maintain would be making sure that the calibration and the calibrated processes are staying true to their original calibration. And also the only other thing would really be lamps, but the lamps have a 9,000 hour lifetime, so there's an awful lot of processes that could be completed before you have to consider replacing the lamp. So the key aspect of maintenance would be calibration, really, and ensuring that they're delivering the results that we've designed them to deliver.
And somebody just asked to say that, well, how often should the calibration should be carried out? So just following on to the answer you've just given.
Yeah, so we would typically set that up to be done every 6 months. Again, as Corrado said earlier, our approach is really to understand the needs of the hospital, and that could be tailored if we understand that there's a very, very high use case within a specific environment. We may recommend that there's a unique higher rate of higher frequency of calibration for that environment, but the typical recommendation would be every 6 months.
Okay, and then I think there's another question about the lamp life, which we already mentioned that it's about 9,000 hours, and when we estimate how many processes, there's a potential of running 27,000 processes. So lamp life was never an issue with Ultra-V system, and I doubt there's going to be an issue with Ultra-V Connect.
And also, just to add to that, the lamp would be covered under the service agreement in any case, so that there'd be full coverage in the kind of the post installation care that we would offer.
Excellent. Well, I really enjoyed this. It's nice to talk about the new technology. It's nice to see how we've been able to take the existing knowledge and existing technology and create this awesome product, which I think is going to benefit quite a few environments, and not just the hospital environments. Same to do with other environments that can benefit from UVC light and fixed systems. So I don't think I have anything else to say. Thanks, Corrado. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will be sharing these slides in the webinar, post this when it's ready online, so you'll be able to watch that again. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.